Agil,
Hi, hello.
how are you?
Great. Hi, Doug. Let me just share the slides, and then we can really start.
Perfect.
Doug, can you see the slides? Doug?
I cannot see the slides.
So let me check. And now?
There we go. Yes,
Great.
perfect.
Okay, so we are ready to go. So hi, everybody, and thanks for joining this webinar on quantifying the benefits and calculating the ROI of DevOps test data management. I'm Gil Trotino. I'm Director of Product Marketing at K2View, and I'm very happy to be joined here today by Doug Fantuzzi. Doug is our VP Customer Success at K2View, and Doug will share with us very soon some real-life insights from some of the most complicated and challenging TDM projects. Hi, Doug.
Hi, Gil. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Sure. So ROI. ROI became really a critical metric for justifying software purchases, especially in these times of economic uncertainties. We know that demonstrating a positive ROI is really crucial to gain approval for any software investment, including test data management. Companies expect clear and quantifiable benefits from any software, whether it's around cost savings, increased revenue, improved efficiency, or enhanced customer satisfaction. So in this coming session, in the coming 45 to 50 minutes, we are going to briefly cover what are the top 8 challenges to overcome in provisioning compliant test data. Then we are going to explain you and share with you how did we calculate the ROI and payback for a TDM solution. We'll share, as I mentioned, some real-world TDM project insights and lessons learned, and we'll end up with a short overview about provisioning test data by business entities, showing you the unique approach of K2TDM solution. During the session, we are going also to ask you guys a few questions just to get you engaged and to learn a little bit about your requirements. So please share your answers once we push the questions. Amir will help us with the poll questions. And at the end, we'll keep a few minutes for Q&A. So you are already welcome to post your questions in the chat box. We will try to address as many questions as we can. And the rest, of course, will be addressed offline. The webinar is recorded, so you or your colleagues can go and watch it later as well. So without further ado, let's start. Put it simply, DevOps test data management is the process of enabling DevOps teams to create, anonymize, and provision data for software testing. Here you can see the Gartner definition. According to another research, QA engineers today spend 46% of their time just in finding and analyzing test data. As we know, agile development, which means shorter development cycles, sprints, promotes continuous testing throughout the development life cycle. This requires a continuous supply of relevant test data to support these ongoing testing efforts. However, as we know, even with the adoption of testing automation solutions, the provisioning of test data is still slow, complex, and error-prone process in many organizations. Why? Let's really briefly discuss the top 8 test data provisioning challenges. By the way, these challenges were discussed at length in our previous webinar, which you can also find on BrightTalk, the webinar that focused on test data management challenges and best practices. So the first challenge is around subsetting test data. Subsetting enables testing teams to identify and extract the precise test data subset to activate specific test scenarios with 100% of test coverage. In doing so, it also enables teams to reduce the quantity of the test data. The second challenge is around the fact that enterprise data is often siloed and fragmented across dozens of data sources. It's stored in different technologies using different data formats, making it very difficult for testers to obtain the data which they need for their testing. The third challenge is about how you achieve full test coverage. Test coverage is the metric used to measure how much of your application code is actually exercised by test cases. Defining the needed test cases is one challenge, but ensuring you have the relevant test data to fully execute these test cases, this is even a greater challenge. Number 4 is about reducing false positives and negatives. When test data is poorly designed, it often causes false positive errors, leading to valuable time and effort wasted by dealing with non-existent bugs. And when test data is insufficient, it leaves the false negatives, which can affect the quality and reliability of your software. The next challenge is about reusing of test data. Reusing test data can save time and effort in re-executing test cases. For example, by versioning datasets, it becomes possible to quickly rerun tests and validate that the software bugs that were discovered in the previous test were actually resolved. So how do you reuse test data? Number 6 is all about data privacy regulations like CPRA, GDPR, LGBT, which require PII information, sensitive information that cannot be exposed to the test environments, need to be anonymized. Discovering and making this PII data secure, for example, through masking, is another big challenge for organizations. Number 7 is about referential integrity, which refers to the consistency of the data across different database tables. This is also something which is very challenging to deal with and is part of the key challenges for provisioning test data. And finally, it's not uncommon for testers to accidentally override each other's test data, resulting in corrupted test data, lost time, and wasted efforts. So in such scenarios, test data must be provisioned again and again, and tests need to be rerun. So as you can see here, a lot of challenges around test data provisioning, which brings a lot of organizations to deploy and adopt a test data management solution. Before we move on, I think it's a great opportunity to pause for a minute and ask you guys about your challenges and about your organization. So Amir, if you can pose the first question, we'd like to ask you, what is your biggest challenge when it comes to test data provisioning? Is it sourcing the test data? Is it subsetting? Maybe it's protecting the test data. Maybe it's enforcing the referential integrity or something else. Please share with us what is your biggest challenge. And you have the ability to vote and to provide your feedback. So the question will be there for a few more minutes. Please share with us your feedback. So now we can move on to the core part of this session, and showing you basically how did we calculate ROI, how did we quantify the business benefits of a test data management solution. Before we dive into the model, let's just once again explain why ROI is so important in these days. ROI is mainly used by organizations for cost justification. Calculating the ROI helps organizations to justify the different costs that are associated with such a project. In our case, this can be the software cost, the implementation cost, the maintenance fees, for example. The second reason is that ROI allows decision makers to assess whether the investment aligns with the organizational financial goals and whether the expected returns override the costs. Another very important parameter is that ROI provides the means to assess the success and the performance of the software investment over time, and we'll deal with it later on when we discuss with Doug how our customers measure their business value. It also helps identify the risks associated with a software purchase. And finally, ROI also facilitates long-term planning and budgeting for many organizations. So ROI is really important. And when we talk about ROI, we mainly examine key metrics that we've outlined here. One of them is the total investment. What is the total cost or cash outlay that is required to implement a project like TDM? And we'll talk a little bit about the cost later. The second metric is the net benefit, which represents the total revenue or financial gain generated from an investment after we deduct all the expenses and costs associated with it. Then we get to the net benefit. We have the return on investment, which is basically the financial metric that measures the profitability or the value generated by an investment relative to its cost. Another one is the payback period. The payback period would be the time which it takes for an investment to generate sufficient cash flows to recover the initial investment cost. And we'll measure it also here, and we'll show you how we did it. And finally, we have the break-even point. The break-even point is the point at which the total revenue from an investment equals the total cost, resulting in neither profit nor loss. So all these metrics were part of our model. We calculated them, and we'll share them with you guys. Okay, so before going to the domain of quantifying the benefits, one note which I believe is very important to make is that any test data management project is normally a cross-functional initiative, which means basically that it requires buy-in from multiple stakeholders in the organization. And each one of these stakeholders is going also to reap their own business benefits. And as you can see here, it starts with the quality engineering people that will enjoy and benefit from increased test coverage, increased productivity, and improved quality. The software development team will get increased agility, speed to market, and increased productivity when they develop new releases for applications and software. The data engineering team basically will benefit from reduced effort when they deal with provision data from higher to lower environment. For example, they will also gain from masking along the way to protect the sensitive and personal information. The compliance team, however, will benefit from the adherence to data privacy regulations and from the reduced risk. And finally, DevOps teams will get the benefit of increased automation. So really the key goal of a DevOps is to foster collaboration and basically to combine all these benefits together. Our model basically took the approach of selecting a sample potential company. We chose a mid-sized US bank, and we made some assumptions regarding this bank's environments and needs based on our understanding, based on our clients, and based on different other industry sources. Industry sources included interviews which we did with our clients that went through TDM project execution and deployment. We talked to industry experts and analysts from Gartner and Forrester, and we did some validation of the model with additional analysts and industry experts. Finally, we also included some risk adjustment factors that allow you to adjust the model and to take some factors of safety if you think that some of the benefits may not be fully maximized in the case of your organization. Now let's dive really into the parameters and into the numbers. First of all, here are some questions to ask yourself before you start working with the model, because as I said, the model takes a sample company, but can be totally customized to your environments, to your organization, and to your needs. In order to customize the model, you may start asking yourselves the following questions. For example, how many people are being used today when it comes to creation, preparation, and provisioning of test data? How many applications are developed annually in your organization? How many releases are shipped annually? What is the average cost of such an application release? Another question would be, how many FTEs, how many people are busy just in finding, identifying, and fixing software bugs, people from development and from QA teams? And what is the cost today that you spend on data storage per application for storing test data? These are some of the questions, some of the parameters that you can plug into the model in order to customize it to your needs. And then we basically focused in our model on 4 key elements of savings. Why? Because we believe that these are the most important and significant cost savings elements that can be quantified, can be calculated, and they are the core pillars of our model. The first one is the reduction in test data creation and provisioning cost. The second one is all about the reduction around cost of data storage, storing this test data. The third one is about improving the productivity across application development teams. And the fourth one is the improvement of reducing defect cost by shifting to the left. And now we'll go one by one across these items and show you how did we calculate them. Before going there, just important to mention that there are a lot of other benefits from deploying a test data management solution. And these are what we call the non-quantified. These are benefits which are very important, but are not part of the model. Some of them are more challenging to quantify, but very important, as you can see here. The first one is the ability to improve different metrics, DevOps research and assessment metrics. Some of these metrics are defined by the DORA, the Google Forum, things like deployment frequency, lead time for changes, etc. Another aspect is all about improved developer experience and talent retention. Again, a very important factor. Cloning production database and replicating production data may be very tedious and may impact the experience of your developer community. And by providing test data management automation tools, you can definitely improve your developer experience. The third one is about reduce regulation compliance costs and potential fines just by being able to protect and secure the test data. And we discussed the ability to identify and protect sensitive information through masking. And last one, you can even reduce carbon footprint and emissions. So you have another set of benefits that are important to consider. Back to the numbers. So as you can probably remember, the first cost-saving element is about reduced test data creation and provisioning cost. Companies today have dedicated people across QA, application development, DevOps, and data engineering teams that are just doing the hard work of creating, preparing, and provisioning test data. These guys may use today manual tools. They may use some custom scripts, database queries, import and export tools, and more. And with a dedicated TDM solution, using automated tools and capabilities such as in-flight data masking or instant data subsetting or synthetic data generation, these test data teams no longer need to manually search for and create and mask and provision this data. So here we assumed in this sample organization that we talk about 5 people dedicated to this effort. We calculated the existing cost using these different manual tools, and based on Forrester and Gartner research, which says basically that organizations can save 40 to 70% in creating and provisioning test data, we took a more conservative estimation of 50%. We calculated the cost that you can see here across 3 years. So 300K for year 2 and additional or increased savings for year 2 and year 3 when you calculate it again, gradual adoption of the TDM solution. So this is factor number 1, the time, the cost we can reduce around the test data creation and provisioning. The second element we calculated is about test data storage and database costs. Again, by using capabilities such as test data subsetting and synthetic data generation techniques, we can create smaller, richer sets of test data. For example, subsetting refers to selecting a representative subset of the test dataset rather than using the entire dataset for testing purposes. So when you do intelligent subsetting, like our customers, you can retain the critical characteristics and diversity of the complete dataset, and ensure reliable testing, but still reduce a lot of data storage costs. Again, also here, we assumed a gradual implementation across the 3 years. We assumed a cost of $10K per application for storage, and then we took, according to our experience, the saving of 66%, and we came up with these savings across the 3 years just around test data storage. The third element that we looked into is the improved productivity we can gain by implementing a test data management solution. So before implementing such a tool, from our experience, developers in different R&D teams would wait sometimes an average of 21 to 25 days to get the test data they need. So not only this is becoming a bottleneck and cause project delays, but it also left testing resources underutilized. So again, here we assume the gradual deployment. We assume that we talk about 4 releases per year, which is for a typical organization. We assume the cost per software release of $150K. Again, we took some assumptions about saving 25% based again on industry expert inputs, and we came up with these cost saving around productivity improvement for year 1, 2, and 3. The fourth element and the last one was about reducing defect cost by shifting left. Once again, according to a recent Gartner survey, 10% of developer FTE time is spent only on fixing bugs. And as we know, the cost of fixing bugs in production is exponentially higher than finding these bugs in earlier phases of the development lifecycle. So also here, we took the same assumption about gradual implementation of the TDM solution. We took the assumption that 2 full-time people in the developer and QA team are just busy in fixing bugs per application. And then we calculated the existing cost, and we believe that we can save 25% of this cost just by providing, again, end-to-end test data management solution. And after implementing a TDM solution, these organizations are able to create the minimum amount of test data necessary to achieve the maximum amount of test coverage. So with this TDM solution, the organization can reduce the overall number of bugs, find the bugs earlier in the software development lifecycle, and fix the bugs more quickly, since it's easier to recreate production issues. So this brings us to these cost savings over the 3 years. These were the business savings that we had on one hand. On the other side, we took the costs and we calculated the different cost elements, including the software cost, which means the software license and support fees. We took into account the professional services costs that this organization need to put aside in order to deploy and install the solution. We took the hardware and software costs that may be associated based on the organization to implement such a solution. And finally, we also took all the internal support costs that are needed to plan and to implement a TDM solution and to also support it as on an ongoing basis. So all these costs together were summed up on the cost side. And this brings us basically to the financial summary, where basically took the total costs for the 3 years, including the setup cost of deploying the solution, the total benefits on the other hand, and then we calculated the net benefits, as you can see here, and we calculated the ROI which summed up to 409% over 3 years, and a payback period of 6 months. So after 6 months, the initial investment basically is totally covered by the benefits that the organization gains. Again, you can see here the financial analysis report. And again, as I said, this is true for this sample organization. This can be customized, fully customized, with all the different parameters, with the risk adjustment that can be added to the model, and you can fit it to your environments. And we are very happy, of course, to do it with you and customize the model based on your figures, your requirements, and your circumstances. So this is a little bit about the model. This is a little bit about, to give you an idea about the figures and the impact. And I think it's a great point now to ask you guys a question about your TDM potential improvements and ROI. And Amir, if you can post the second question. The second question is about asking you which aspect of TDM do you believe potentially can generate the highest ROI improvement in your organization? So is it around test data generation and provisioning costs? Is it around the cost for data, test data masking, development productivity, or the storage maybe, or maybe reducing defect cost as we just explained, or any other elements? So what do you believe is the most important element in your organization that potentially can generate the biggest cost saving by using the test data management solution? And again, let's keep this question for a few more minutes. And you guys, please share with us your thinking and your feedback. Now, let's now take another look, another angle, and let's look at how our customers are generating business benefits from their test data management projects. And let me once again introduce Doug Fantuzzi, who is our VP of Customer Success. Hi, Doug.
Hi, Gil.
So, Doug, two questions to start
Sure.
with for you. One, if you can explain briefly the role of your customer success team, what do they do? And second, if you can share with us a little bit and with the audience, what is the typical type of customer that have or are in the process of adopting TDM using the K2View solutions and services?
Okay, great. And I think it's important to understand kind of the profile of our customers to kind of understand the context of the way they look at ROI. But before I kind of get into the profile of our customer success team has a simple job. They sit between the customer and our product development and product management team. And their goal is to basically make sure that the customers are achieving the ROI, maximizing the value out of the product, getting the results that they expect from their project. And even after that initial project is done, making sure that there's continued value for them. So we're on the ground with the customers, and that's why we've got a lot of good insight into what's going on kind of across our customer base. Now, it's interesting, K2View has done a lot of work with what we call customer 360 projects, some data migration projects, et cetera. But I have to say, I think right now we probably have, 6 to 8 active TDM projects. So TDM is hot. I think that's the bottom line. And our projects range from either those that are in the early implementation phase or implementation phase. There's those that have already implemented that are now doing upgrades either to new versions to take advantage of new capabilities such as synthetic data generation and cloud capabilities, and then customers who are expanding from their first ROI use case into other areas. So that's the different flavors. But our type of customer, so first of all, we're industry agnostic. So we can service retail, we can service pharmaceuticals, healthcare. Right now, most of our customers are in the telecom and media service provider space and financial institutions. They kind of represent the bulk of our customers. We have some other ones, and they tend to be in the mid to large enterprise range. We have one or two smaller customers, but the nature of those customers is that they tend to have a more complex IT environment. Some small customers have a simple environment, and they don't necessarily need a robust solution. And then within those those enterprises and across those industries, I'd say there's two flavored. There's typically those that have an existing TDM program, but they tend to be siloed. So they are really looking for primarily cost improvements first and speed and agility second. Those that don't have any existing TDM program tend to start and have it driven by what we call a business-driven data approach. It's really driven by the business who's looking to decrease their time to market and increase their speed, and that's why they want to embark on a TDM approach. So for new customers, business agility, speed first, then centralizing it, making sure that the quality and volume of data is there, that the integrity of the data is there. A lot of things you talked about as they implement new capabilities. Second, for existing people have already committed to TDM and see business value, they're tending to focus initially on the cost savings and efficiencies around centralization, quality, and integrity. And then, a common denominator, it's there for everybody. It's really about security and compliance. You talked about PII data. It's a given, but is so important, particularly as you're centralizing and creating a common function. You may have system integrators doing work for you that are in different parts of the world, offshore. You've got different teams inside your organization that may not be allowed to see data from other segments of your business. So when you create this centralized approach, compliancy and security becomes extremely important. Now, the common denominator across all of this, and Gil, you're going to talk about it later, is basically the business entity, the ability to manage your testing capabilities and your test creation by business. And this is what gets the business excited. And that's all about our data product, but I'll leave that to you.
Yeah, we'll discuss it briefly later,
but you have to get, the business has to really get a lot of things are, it's easy to drive this to kind of an IT technical approach, but in my experience, and I'm sitting in different steering committees and QBRs, the most successful customers are there when there's value demonstrated and realized by the business, and then they're not questioning the cost of the approach, et cetera. I know it's easier said than done, because it's a lot easier to quantify some of the technical items, but if the business sees value and they're bought in, this goes a long way.
Yeah, absolutely. And Doug, I know you said that we have customers who are in different phases in terms of their implementation of TDM solutions, but can you share with us some details around the value that customers have already realized by deploying a test data management solution?
Yeah, I can. When I look across the customers and try to look at how they might see it or how they quantify it. Again, when you're looking at it from a business perspective, I know it sounds easier than it really is, but the left-hand column here, enhanced business agility, faster time to market, is really where it's like the center of the donut. This is where you really need to focus your energy and make sure that in some form or fashion in the context of your business and in the context of what your business cares about, you're demonstrating value to them. And it typically comes about in these three different ways. And again, it's a little bit of a repeat of what you said, but if you're able to show that you can basically reduce the time, from weeks to hours, or months to days in terms of the creation of real world test data, and what that does and how that benefits the business in terms of better quality and faster time to market. And you can show them statistics on that. You can show them that you've, in a lot of our cases, our technical teams have demonstrated that they could double the amount of releases with a centralized QA TDM program from their QA organization than they did before. And not only could they double it, the other thing to demonstrate is that the content of those releases can be even more sophisticated, and has higher quality because you're able to create much better, higher quality, more volume, more realistic test data. And now all of a sudden your business sees that there is connected value to this, to them being able to keep up with the market, demands of deploying new features, and not just any new feature, but if they can be confident that they can deploy a complex new feature that gets to their customers with quality, and you can show how TDM plays a key role in that, and it does. It is the ultimate check and balance of the quality of that production capability that you've put out to the market, whether you're a telecom provider, a financial provider, a fintech provider, whatever. So that is the first thing that we try to put into our QBRs when we're working with technology companies, technology organizations, so they can show business values. And then you jump over to the efficiency gains. A lot of the things you talked about, you can increase your test coverage. You may even be able to reduce people because you've put in the effort of a powerful tool, and you've empowered your QA organization to actually pull in the data at a business entity level when they need it and at the scale they need it. And basically you can increase your automation, and all that then drives the cost savings and the ROI. And what we've seen is you can easily demonstrate an ROI in less than a year for sure. I mean, I would bet on it. And some of our more sophisticated large enterprise customers, once they get to scale, let's say it takes them a year to get the scale, they're realizing value. And I think, Gil, in yours, you showed like a year one of 1 million, maybe 2 or 3 million, but they started to realize, $4 or $5 million a year in centralizing and putting in a TDM solution, a business-centric TDM solution. And then of course you have, compliance, and some people think about compliance as a one-time deal, but there's another cost savings aspect of compliance is that when that chief security office comes and says, here's a new requirement for security, doing it in a centralized approach and giving them the confidence that they can audit and get this done in one place is a big cost savings. And now your technical teams aren't focused on driving internal requirements and designing and developing internal requirements. They actually can focus their energy on business requirements, but it gives the chief security officer a sense of security of their own, that you can easily, with the masking rules and with the capabilities built into the tool in one place, you can evolve your security needs with security requirements. So security is not a one-time deal. You need to evolve with the new requirements of the CSO organization.
Thanks for sharing this, Doug. Some of the numbers here are really amazing, from 2 to 3 weeks to hours in provisioning test data. Lastly, just for the sake of time, Doug, I know your team works with the field on the ground. Can you share some general lessons that you learned based on your experience in supporting customers to make their TDM projects and rollout successful? If you
Sure.
need
So
to
these will be
summarize it
more,
across your experience.
more anecdotal, more, a lot of the things that we talk about here are what we talk about when we do our kickoff customer or onboarding process with new customers. But I think I've said enough about it, but you have to secure executive commitment, create a steering committee. You've got different entities or different parts of the organization, Gil, that you talked about earlier, that need to get on board. When you implement TDM as a program, it is a cultural shift, and adoption is key. So you can have the greatest technology, the greatest project plan to do it, but equally important is adoption. Focus on adoption. Think big, start small. A lot of projects fail when they just go after the immediate problem and aren't looking about where this program wants to go. Create a North Star, but prove in results, within 3 to 6 months, so that you can demonstrate that this is a viable approach and deliver the business outcomes. We talked about consistency is key. Another thing that leads to failure was when project teams rotate project people in and out. New people are learning the tool. People are only doing it as a part-time job. Commit to it. And really important as part of adoption is don't go after your entire, let's say you are an existing company, you've got siloed QA organizations, hundreds of people. Pick the right ones to target your initial MVP. And I guarantee you get them on board and it'll be like a wildfire afterwards, because everybody else will want to jump on board. When you try to go after everything at once, you've got a variety of different opinions. People, can't get their arms around it yet. Pick the right QA and dev team to target, and success will breed success. Obviously, build a backlog for continuous improvement. Some of our more mature customers are leveraging cloud elasticity so that they can scale up and down their little TDM environments. And then once you've got a good base and you've got a good data product, figure out how you might be able to use that for other use cases in your enterprise. So I hope that helps. I know it's a lot in a short period of time. I usually kind of go through this in an hour or so with new customers, but
yep.
Absolutely. To touch all the bases.
Insightful and helpful. Thanks, Doug. Stick with us. We may need you for answering some of the questions later on. Before we go to the Q&A, just I'd like briefly, you mentioned our unique approach of managing and provisioning test data business entities. So I'd like really briefly to talk a little bit about the K2View approach. K2 TDM is all-in-one modular TDM solution. K2View enables software and quality teams to instantly provision the trusted test data they need from any source, as you can see here, to any target environment at a fraction of the cost and time of alternative solutions. And that's because mainly our unique provisioning approach of provisioning test data by business entities. You mentioned it several times, Doug. And as we can see here, a business entity can be anything. It can be a customer, a claim, a policy, a credit card. And our patented solution ingests source data and organizes it by business entities, while compressing and anonymizing the data and enforcing also referential integrity, which is inherently enforced actually by this approach. So teams can then effortlessly provision compliant test data subsets to target environments on demand, as you can see here. So the data from this test data warehouse is fully accessible to the DevOps via API, and for the testers via an easy-to-use self-service web portal. We see here some of the solution components. By the way, people that would like to learn more can go to the BrightTalk website, and we have the white paper that explaining our approach and our solution. But what's important, I think, to highlight is that using this unique way of provisioning test data by business entities, we can get some very crucial benefits and business impact, as you can see here. First of all, subsetting test data is becoming very easy, intuitive, and quick. This means basically that it frees the DevOps and engineering teams from spending a lot of time to manually prepare test data. It reduces the time to prepare the test data dramatically, and it enables the testers to test right away without delays. It also isolates and hides all the complexity of the underlying data sources from the testers, making it very simple and intuitive for testers to perform any operations on the test data. We talked about masking. So discover and mask PII data in flight is inherent part of this approach. And in the context of business entity, it's really becoming quite easy. Also, perform different in-flight complex data transformations is part of the solution on the flight without the need to go and apply any complex, hard to maintain batch ETL processes or other different tools. Then we also have the flexibility to keep the test data store as fresh as needed. And whenever the testers need fresh data, the test data warehouse syncs with the data sources and the fresh data is uploaded. There is no need to duplicate databases all over the place. And of course, this reduces also cost, complexity, maintenance, and risk. And there is also, finally, the very important case of referential integrity of test data, which inherently is preserved even after masking by using this approach of business entity. So all these are direct benefits of the business entity approach, and this brings a set of business impact that we discussed about high quality of the end user experience, faster software delivery, enhanced tester productivity, and full compliance. So this is a little bit about our approach. As I said, if you want to learn more, you are welcome to download the TDM solution white paper from the BrightTalk attachment page. And also here, if you wish to get a demo of the TDM K2View solution, you can just answer this poll question number 3. Amir, please push the question. People that would like to get a demo or to talk to us about the ROI model for the sake of customizing it for their needs, for your needs, guys. So approach us and we'll be very happy to share with you the model, work with you on the different Excels and calculations and make it really fit to your environments and your needs. I think we have a few more minutes left for a Q&A session. So let's see if we have any questions. Okay, Doug, let's see. We see some questions already here.
Yeah.
Yeah, interesting question. I think you are the best person to answer.
Yeah. So there's a question. It's I think you're talking about the first one. How do you quantify the risk mitigation benefits of implementing a TDM program or a TDM solution? So I'll tell you what I've seen. I haven't seen it like quantified into dollars, like put into like the Excel spreadsheet, the ROI spreadsheet, but it does tend to be one of those below the line benefits that you called out. And the way that we normally see it kind of in practice is that when I say start small, delivering that value to the business within that 3 to 6 months, and they actually see and they experience the elimination of risk because of the putting all the power of the business entity into the QA organization. So it tends to be a bit more subjective than quantitative, I guess, is what I've seen. I've never really seen it as equate to a dollar savings. It tends to be one of those below the line items that says let's de-risk. And then obviously when it does take a little bit of time, but when the business sees the value of the quality that goes into the field, it gives them more confidence.
Thank you, Doug. One question I can take. Can you explain which factors did you consider when calculating the internal support costs yeah, it's part of the detailed model, but briefly explaining this, the cost we took for the internal support, basically around the FTEs the organization need to allocate for activities of the product installation, product deployment, and the ongoing support. As you figured out, we also assumed some gradual implementation. This is what we see normally. For example, going from 10 applications in year 1 to 20 to 40. So this also needs some investment in enhancing the deployment, training the people, etc. So all of these costs were basically mapped into the cost side of the equation. Doug, maybe another question I think you are able to answer. There is a question here about the unforeseen obstacles or challenges that could impact the ROI encountered by customers while deploying a TDM project.
Yeah, so what are the challenges that people would run into? I'd say the biggest one is around adoption. So it's where a kind of a technical team goes off and builds a project, but really forgets about adoption, which is why I said kind of making sure that all those different organizations are bought in, because it does influence different organizations. It's not just a technical project, it's a cultural shift. And cultural shifts, you know, can weigh heavier than actually just technical implementation. So getting the right mindset of the QA organization who's going to adopt this and see the power that gets put into their hands, because now at the click of a button, they can actually generate whatever test data they need that they can actually use to match and align with the business function that, you know, the product owner has, you know, built into the Scrum team, you know, backlog. So adoption is key, and again, sometimes harder said than done, but continue to demonstrate the business value to the business owners, and try not to get dragged into just a technical implementation.
Great, thanks. So just going back to these questions we asked the audience, we asked what's the biggest challenge. It's interesting to see it's all over. Enforcing referential integrity, 35% of the people named it as their top challenge, but also sourcing the data is the second one, and protecting the data. Well, these are the three top challenges. When we asked about what is the biggest potential savings or ROI improvement in the organization, then we see 55% of people that responded said test data generation and provisioning. Okay, so the very core discipline of test data provisioning, but also we see people, you know, naming reducing defect as a cost potential, and also test data masking. So these are some of the answers. And we got few questions about the model itself, the ROI model that we just shared briefly. So people that ask about the ROI model, you are welcome to approach us. As I said, we are very happy to sit with you, explain the model in detail, and customize it to your needs and to your specific requirements. So happy to you know, to get this type of calls, and we're happy to engage with you, discuss, and get more into the details when it comes to the financial model, of course.
And on the flip side, Gil, if people do want to have more of a one-on-one discussion around, you know, I can't give out specific customer names, et cetera, but want to talk about real world things that they need to consider as they build out their model and try to, you know, get a program off the ground, I'd be more than happy to have a more in-depth discussion.
Absolutely. Time is really up. Thank you very much, Doug, for joining this session and sharing with us insights from the field. Thank you for all the people that joined the session. Again, the session is recorded. You are welcome to view and to also to suggest your colleagues to view it. And as I said, we have additional resources already uploaded to the BrightTalk website. So thank you again, and good luck, everybody.
Yep, thanks. Enjoy your day, guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye.